Hi! Time to go over some stuff from the third week of March 2026, give or take a day. Thank you for joining me. First up, we're going to go over a few purchases, book haul, and whatnot. First up, we went by Barnes and Noble and one of our local stores here, and because we were out running errands and it was there, and we were like, let's go. So we went, and I purchased. First up, I got the third volume in the Delicious in Dungeon. Almost said Delicious in Dungeon Dragon. Delicious. Delicious in Dungeon Volume 3. Nice little octopus there on the cover. So they're definitely having some. Does it count as calamari or is that squid? I don't know. But yeah, I'm looking forward to reading this. This is a really fun series. I think the anime adaptation is on Netflix, and I might check that out too. I'm a fan, so I thank my sister-in-law Lindsay for introducing me to Delicious in Dungeon. Also, there was a new book out by Uketsu, or at least new for American audiences, and this is Strange Buildings. It looks to be an anthology follow-up to Strange Houses, which keeps on the theme of anomalies in buildings that uncover strange secrets. There seems to be, I think, 11 tales in this that have some pretty interesting names and titles. I think here, The Hall to Nowhere, Nurturing Darkness, The Watermill in the Woods, The Vanishing Room, Uncle's House, other things of that nature. But Uketsu, I'm looking forward to reading that as well. So definitely a Japanese theme haul there. Added another album to my collection, which is third in the Shadow Symphony one I have. This is it's hard to read. Raven's Grove Drive-In. Much like Midnight Syndicate, this is music for spooky music, haunted house music for that horror movie in your mind. And when I'm not listening to film soundtracks while reading, I'm usually listening to Shadow Symphony or Midnight Syndicate. Last week, I talked about Moon of the Wolf and mentioned that there was something with Bradford Dillman coming down the pike. And lo and behold, Entrada just released the soundtrack to Bug, William Castle's last film production, and a movie about ash-eating cockroaches from under the earth that start fires, eat the ash, and basically wreak havoc. Bradford Dillman plays a scientist who studies and inadvertently creates a hybrid of the cockroach that can exist on the surface of the planet. Not a particularly smart thing to do, but if he didn't do it, there'd be no movie. And I saw Bug in 1976. It came out in 1975, in I think June. So newspaper clipping might pop up for it sometime in June of this year. But I saw it on a double bill at the Alameda 3 with Godzilla vs. Megalon, who, interestingly enough, just so happens to be a cockroach himself. So you had a Bug double feature. Pretty cool. At least I thought it was cool. Although I liked Bug more than I liked Godzilla vs. Megalon. That one was a little too cartoony for me. This was an interesting score because the composer and performer, it's an electronic score, is Charles Fox, who was known or is known more for his melodies than he was for the atonal score that he created for this film. Um, some of his more famous works seem to be the theme to The Love Boat, the theme to Happy Days, and theme to Wonder Woman. Also, he wrote the music for Killing Me Softly with his song, and numerous other projects across the years. As I mentioned before, this is an atonal score, so no melody. And there are times when he has a sequence of like beep boop noises that are meant to, I believe, infer that the cockroaches are talking to each other, or kind of like implying that's the kind of like their language. But it also to some might sound like kittens running back and forth across the keyboard. So those are that was the music um, portion of our show. If this is even a show, it's just some old fart sitting at a computer yapping about stuff. Um, the puzzle I started is Tres Picos, a Salvador Dali puzzle. A friend of ours gave this to me after she made a drive across the country, stopping at various locales, and this is going to be this is going to be a challenge for me. So no idea when the assembly video will go up, but this is the one I finally got when I start working on puzzles. This is the one that I started working on. Reading wise, I'm getting to the halfway point of the Rebirths of Tau. This is a pretty, I'm enjoying it. It's fast paced and fun, and I'm interested to see how the storyline or the war between the Gingics and the Prosperous, who are an alien species of kind of like pseudo gaseous entities that have been around since before the dinosaurs, and have been more or less using humans like puppets to kind of like create technology that will allow them to return home. However, there was a splintering between the factions. One faction wanted to speed it up. Another faction said, hey man, let's just, these are sentient beings here. Yeah, like I said, I'd be interested I'm interested in seeing how it turns out. Might save a lot of my commentary for a full review next week. This also got me started on doing something else. Many years ago, I read a book called Reprisal by F. Paul Wilson. There was a character in there that wanted to read a book a week. And what he basically did was he would take the number of pages that a book was and divide that number by 7, and that was the page count that he had to read every day in order to read it in 7 days. Now, this is a 506 page book, which means about 72 or 73 pages a day, which is a big ask for me at this particular time. But so maybe a review next week. We'll see. Also, the next book, which is Virus, Hell of the Living Dead by Brad Carter, a novelization of a Bruno Mattei film. That also clocks in at 500 pages because guy got carried away with the whole premise of a global zombie epidemic and decided, hey man, I'm going to have fun with this, and I can't fault him. Looking forward to reading it. We'll see how good or bad it is. The other reading I did was Vampirella number 23, which is good, but not quite as good as Vampirella number 22. The stories this time around, you had the Blood Queen of Bayou Parish, which is the next serialized version of the Vampirella story, that the ongoing adventures of Vampirella that picks up after Hell Upon High, that previous issue. This one has Vampy and her crew of allies journeying to somewhere near New Orleans to search for and destroy the Darkling Disciples cult's second base of operations. And it's a lively, fun story that actually had me thinking back to one of the first episodes of Star Trek, The Man Trap. There's a little magical shenanigans in there that had me thinking of the beginning of that episode. Second story was Cobra Queen, which has a trio of adventurers scouring an avoided stretch of jungle in India, searching for the Temple of the Cobra, which is the lair of the Cobra Queen. Do they find it? What do you think? What happens when they get there? Well, I'm not going to spoil it. Third story is Call It Companionship, and this one is about a young woman named Cheryl who forms quite the bond with her new pet cat. Yeah, it's an evil cat story, I think, or maybe it's just paying homage to something like Repulsion. I don't know, but it's okay. Although I thought I actually had a better ending for it in my mind when I was reading. I was like, oh, it'd be cool if it did this, and they didn't do that. So, yeah, it was fun, but not anything great. The Accursed has a young man or a man breaking into a cemetery at night. It turns out that the body of someone named Gray Arkham, I think it was, who was a feared warlock and murderer, was buried in the town cemetery by his followers, and it is feared by those in town that the grounds will be accursed and no longer hallowed because Arkham's body is there. But few, if any, dare to disturb Arkham's grave, except for Joseph Trask, who ventures into the cemetery in the dead of night armed with a shovel and a pistol, and is ready to do battle with all variety of otherworldly threats and defenses in order to cleanse the grave of Gray Arkham's grave. It's pretty good, not great, but it was good. The Witch's Promise is the shortest story in the anthology, and this one was really actually kind of slight. It could have actually been longer, or they could have played with it more. I don't know. It seemed rather rushed, and the ending was really abrupt and almost confusing. But this one has the child of a woman that was executed for witchcraft is loved and left by a soldier who is returning at the end of his conscription or his service. And this young witch promises revenge. And, this is a Vampirella Warren magazine. You don't need to be Rod Serling or H.P. Lovecraft to figure out what's going to happen next. The last story is a really cool one called Won't Eddie ever learn? Which turns out to be a rhetorical question. This has a reprobate wanderer stumbling upon a small and humble pig farm out in the middle of whoever knows where. And he automatically sets his sight on stealing, getting some money, or at least getting a truck. And his plans keep getting fouled up. Again, I thought that the story would end a certain way, but it didn't. It went a completely different route, which, unlike the Witch's Promise, no, not the Witch's Promise, Call It Companionship. Unlike Call It Companionship, I actually like the ending to Won't Eddie Ever Learn. If it had gone the way I thought it would, I would have liked it, and it went the way it did, and I liked it. It was a win-win. It was just like, yeah, that's a good one. So it was a solid end to issue number 23, Vampirella, which is in the Vampirella Archives, Volume 4. And the next one, issue 24, has this cover. All right. I took a little road trip the other day. I went down to Dunsmuir House in Oakland, California. Although I have lived almost my entire life in the San Francisco Bay Area, I have no recollection of ever visiting Dunsmuir House, which I first saw, I believe, in the 1976 film Burnt Offerings when it aired on television. And then I saw it again in Phantasm. And then I saw it yet again in A View to a Kill. And it also evidently was the setting for a 1989 thriller that starred and was co-directed by actor James Hong, called The Vineyard, which I think is about like evil wine, evil winemaker, monster, wine that makes people monster. I don't know. But we shot at Dunsmuir House. Also, Mike Myers comedy, 1993 comedy, So I Married an Axe Murderer, was shot there. And evidently Clint Eastwood, when he shot True Crime, there was some footage shot at the Dunsmuir House. Also, there was a remake of Gloria that starred Sharon Stone that was also shot there. I think that film came out in 1999 as well, same year as True Crime. The house has also appeared in a couple of in episodes of television. There was a series with Linda Carter and Lonnie Anderson called Partners in Crime in the United States. Overseas, because they didn't want to confuse it with the Agatha Christie, Tommy and Tuppence work, it was called 50/50. And the Dunsmuir House also appeared in an episode of Nash Bridges, which starred Don Johnson and Cheech Marin. I took some video and some pictures. I learned a very valuable lesson that if I'm going to go to places where they shot movies and stuff, it's better to kind of like take a look at the movies, take a look at the stills and see if I can get actual shots of the locations used. I got glimpses of a couple of them in some of the pictures, and have put the corresponding screenshots or stills either from like that I cobbled together. But I made a little video of my visit, and it's about 3 minutes of a house in the Oakland Hills. So I hope you enjoy it. And if not, you can just scrub past it. If you're still watching, that is. So, Dunsmuir House. Enjoy. Okay, now we're going to go to viewing. I watched 3 movies this week. Tanya was out of town for a business conference, so I binged a couple of things. First up was Trauma, which was a 1993 Dario Argento film, the first that featured his daughter Asha in a lead role, and it was, I believe, it might be his third film that he shot in the United States, technically, or was set in the United States. The first would have been 1980s Inferno, but I think most of that was like second unit work and some like Central Park stuff. He didn't really like film in the United States as much as he did in the next 2 projects. And then there was 1990s Two Evil Eyes, where he shot a version of The Black Cat that starred Harvey Keitel. And I believe he shot that in Boston, or was it Baltimore? Um, Maybe it was Baltimore. I don't know, but you know, there's that. And then he shot this in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And as he does with Rome and Turin and other areas, he mixed and matched locations to create kind of like a dreamscape. But something didn't quite connect here. This was one of like the first movies he did where people were like, "Oh my God, what happened to Dario Argento?" I don't know if it was because he was using an American crew or working with almost entirely American actors, or if just the vibe of what Argento usually does didn't really translate or what, but the result is a really uneven movie that has some really great moments and images in it, but for the most part doesn't really connect. Also not helping is that this movie's plot and structure and owes a lot to one of his most beloved films, which was Deep Red. The story of yeah, the parent dynamics, everything. It's similar. You can see it. You could probably watch these movies back to back if you wanted, and you could see the repetition, the thematic repetition that is occurring here. I don't think it's that terrible. I think there was a lot in it that I was like, oh yeah, this is so Argento, but it doesn't really. It just doesn't connect. I'm glad I have this Blu-ray in my collection. It's from Vinegar Syndrome. Happy about that, and it's always fun to see Ozzy Argento and Brad Dourif and Piper Laurie, and Frederick Forrest, and it's just and some really, really wonky, wackadoodle character choices that only seem to happen in Argento films, or only happen in Argento films. Maybe they happened in Roberto Bava movies or Mario Bava or Fulci, but these, yeah. But diehard fans such as me probably already have this or have seen it. But yeah, um, I'm glad I saw that. I also went and saw Undertone, which is being hyped as the scariest film you will ever hear. And I will say that while I did appreciate the film, and there were some moments in the film that I found unnerving and uh, challenging, um, I just did not connect emotionally or intellectually with the story's more overtly religious aspects. I mean, and the ending, you can figure out what everything that's kind of happened or what's going on, but it's really, the ending's vague, and and in a way that isn't good. There's vague endings that can stick with you, and you're like, wow, man, what happened? That's like, like The Sopranos or John Carpenter's The Thing, or Inception. I mean, those are the kinds that popped in my head. But then this is one where it's just kind of like, huh? Wait, uh, because the movie doesn't give you the kind of catharsis that feels earned. And there's also a moment where it's like, when a character has to explain something, yeah, again, it has its moments, but just, you know, I would say if you really want to see it on the big screen, it's worth seeing on the big screen if you go to a theater that has got a really good sound system, because this is an auditory film. So I would also say that if you watch it at home or watch it on a thing, have a good set of headphones or something on, so you can really appreciate the sound editing and sound design in the film. Um, Also, I got a very blunt reminder of being careful of what you wish for. Um, I decided I wanted, on impulse, to watch a dumb monster movie. And so I thumbed through Shudder and found Death Valley, a movie from 2021 about mercenaries that have to go into like a secret facility to rescue a scientist, and shenanigans ensue. Uh, Great, good monster design, I thought. But other than that, I've got nothing. So I'm just going to leave that one uh, by the wayside and climb into the Wayback Machine to visit some vintage newspaper ads for the work week of this week of the third week of March, which is, let me check my handy dandy notes here. Ooh, where is it? It would be March 16th to 20th. So let's go back to March 16th, 1989. And Leviathan starts tomorrow. Now, I saw this at the Presidio Theater in San Francisco, which was in the Marina District, or is in the Marina District. I don't know if it's there or not. And it was one of the more memorable junk cinema experiences of 1989 for me. Just like Deep Star 6, which I'm reasonably certain came out before Leviathan, or around the same time. This was another underwater monster movie that was eager to siphon cash off of the excitement that was swirling around the anticipated release of James Cameron's underwater or undersea adventure movie, The Abyss, which was slated for a late summer release that very same year. Everybody knew it had creatures in it, so they were all after the Terminator and Aliens. Cameron's making a undersea creature feature, so yeah, undersea creatures, let's go. But just like Deep Star 6, Leviathan fell short of profit-making expectations. This is also one of those where there are, like Trauma, there's a lot of necessary elements in Leviathan that could and should work. But what it is lacking here, for me at least, from my perspective, the most vital of critical elements, which is the touch of a director that understands and appreciates the material. The director here was George P. Cosmatos, who at the time was best known for Rambo: First Blood Part 2 and Cobra, two Sylvester Stallone action pictures. And he really seemed disinterested in unnerving the audience beyond the bare minimum. And even worse, seemed almost antagonistically reluctant to utilize the impressive creature effects that were designed and created for the film. You get a better, clearer look at them in stills, and it's a pretty cool creature design. And that's too bad, because if it had been handled well, you might have had a creature feature worthy of a view along with the movies that it is obviously emulating, which are 1979's Alien and 1982's The Thing. Also on March 16th, but back in 1926, the Oakland Tribune had an ad for what looks to be a reoccurring column by H.G. Wells titled The Outline of the Arts. I could not find any information about this under that particular title when I did a little cursory search for it. So I'm going to hazard a guess that this is an excerpt from a larger, longer work known as The Outline of History. But your guess is as good as mine. March 17th, 1978, and Return from Witch Mountain opens today. Now, although I had a great deal of cultural awareness of the Witch Mountain movies, the only one I have a solid memory of actually seeing on the big screen was 2009's Race to Witch Mountain, which starred Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, and had a cameo by author Whitley Strieber, which I thought was an unexpected and giggle-inducing delight. I like that they got him there. That was cool. But my memories of the original films are fragmented and spotty at best. But the simple fact that this movie features Christopher Lee, Bette Davis, and Anthony James as the menacing antagonist is enough to make me want to watch it. Also, it was directed by John Howe, who had directed, I believe, Escape to Witch Mountain, and also Dirty Mary and Crazy Larry, and the Legend of Hell House, and many others. And sorry, I just got a text that was excuse me, I'm going to cut this out. And we're back. Sorry about that. I had to clear up a clerical error. And maybe one day I'll learn how to speak eloquently, although eloquence might be overrated. So where was I? Oh yes, Return from Witch Mountain and the works of John Howe. He also would follow this up with another film for Disney, which also starred Bette Davis, the misfire The Watcher in the Woods, which suffered from, I think, budgetary issues and studio interference, or a lack of faith in the project. But I also love the Hills Have Eyes vibe of this particular art with them like, really like that. Also, March 17th, but in 1929, S.S. Van Dyne's new mystery novel, The Bishop Murder Case, which was the fourth in the Philo Vance series, is available to purchase at Paul Elder's. So, yeah, I haven't read any of the Philo Vance books. I understand that they kind of fell out of favor with the rise of hard-boiled fiction, but they were quite popular back in the day, and William Powell played Philo Vance before he became the star of the Thin Man series. March 18th, 1990, and the TV Week gives the cover to the all-new Phantom of the Opera miniseries, which probably exists because Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical adaptation was huge at this particular time. This version, which is not a musical, starred Charles Dance as the Phantom. Also featured, I believe, Burt Lancaster. And what makes this NBC cash-in miniseries noteworthy is that it was the first production that was ever allowed to film inside the famed Paris Opera House. This will no doubt make it interesting to more than a few Phantom of the Phantom of the Opera enthusiasts, and I might check this out at some point, but that point is not going to be anytime soon. Also, March 18th, year 1928, we have the H.C. Capital Company hyping the availability of The Breakup by Esther Birdsall Darling and Crusade by Dawn Byrne. The former is a frontier romance set in the author's adopted home of Nome, Alaska. The latter is a historical novel about the adventures of an Irish mercenary in the Sixth Crusade. March 19th, 1981, and The Final Conflict starts tomorrow. Now, I was looking forward to this when it was about to open, because I remember seeing the ads for it when the first two Omen movies made their network debut in 1980, and it seemed to take forever for this movie to come out, and I had such high expectations, and those expectations were not met. Also, although there was a failed pilot for a television series that aired as Omen 4: The Awakening, which was broadcast in 1991, and Gordon McGill wrote two media tie-in sequel novels, which were Omen 4: Armageddon 2000 and Omen 5: The Abomination, which were both published in the mid-80s. I consider this to be the official end of the Omen trilogy, and if you watch this movie from beginning to end, you see the ending, you'll understand why. And while it falls short of crafting the ominous dread of the first film and lacks the ghoulish bombast of the first, and I think superior sequel's over-the-top death scenes, The Final Conflict does manage to have a few redeeming qualities. No pun intended. First is Sam Neill as the adult Damien Thorne. He's the MVP of this movie. Although not given much, if anything at all, to work with in the script, Neill nonetheless imbues Damien with such a powerful, charismatic presence that it makes its squandered opportunity in this film here all the more noticeable and lamentable. I mean, you want Damien to do something, but he's never really allowed by contrivance or budgetary limitations, or maybe fear of like leaning into end times theology too much. It just doesn't do much. Second, and even more for me, is Jerry Goldsmith's terrific score. It is a powerful and at times beautifully bombastic and work deserving of award consideration, although I don't think it ever was, but it is a splendid, splendid work. And that's about it, really. While they pulled off the final part of the film's title, any and all expecting or hoping for some cataclysmic conflict will come away disappointed, even though I can understand and to a somewhat limited extent even appreciate leaning toward a quieter and more psychological, perhaps even meditative approach to the supposed end times, that theological bent. The creative team assembled here did not pull it off. So it goes. March 19th, 1978, and here we have a very blurry and difficult ink to make out ink blot smudge that is an ad for the hardcover release of Alistair MacLean's novel Goodbye California. I first learned about this book, I think, when it came out in paperback, because an ad for it aired during an episode of the CBS Radio Mystery Theater. And I got really excited about, a story about a terrorist that's using bombs to blow up the fault lines, California, or threatening to, in blackmail, and it sounded really exciting. And there was a cop that was chasing him down. But I didn't read it until years later, and you know, the book that I was imagining in my head, probably because I had seen Superman the movie, and Lex Luthor was doing something with nuclear bombs and the San Andreas Fault, and you know, was a lot more exciting and interesting than what I actually read. But that happens. But I did read it at some point in the 90s. Okay. March 20th, 1968. We got a goodie here. 5 million years to Earth starts today. Uh, I remember 5 million years to Earth scaring the daylights out of me back in the day when it first aired on, I believe, the 3:30 movie on KGO Channel 7. While I also remember being somewhat impatient for the bug monsters seen at the beginning to show up and wreak havoc upon the populace, I was in no way disappointed with what actually happened in the movie. And yeah, it blew me away. Um, Ironically, that would be the only time I would see what I now know is a film called Quatermass in the Pit, the third Hammer film feature adaptation of a Nigel Neal BBC serial. Because this was, as the case with Terence Fisher's monster movie Island of Terror, the damn thing never seemed to show on TV again, at least at any time slot that I was able to watch it. Not helping was I always got it like confused with 20 million years to Earth, or 20 million miles to Earth, and all there was another film with 5 million in it. But yeah, I didn't finally catch up to it until well into the 80s when I was able to tape it off of, I think, TBS or something. Huh. And now I have it on Blu-ray from Screen Factory. This is my favorite Quatermass movie / story, and I think the creative impact it had on filmmakers and across the spectrum is pretty blatant if you know how to look. The two that I really think, you're like, oh yeah, these guys love Quatermass in the Pit. Was John Carpenter, whose 1987 satanic lava movie, Prince of Darkness, definitely cribs stuff from Quatermass in the Pit and others. And then there was a noticeable homage to the film in the 2006 animated feature Monster House. When they got the crane going, I'm like, oh, they did it. They saw Quatermass in the Pit. I know this. So, great movie. I love it. I'm going to watch it again because I just talked about it. So now I want to watch it again. March 20th, 2020. And we're going to end the week here with this ad for the then current issue of Cosmopolitan, which hypes a psychoanalytical essay or article titled Yourself and You by Harvey O'Higgins, which analyzes or claims to analyze why Theodore Roosevelt was compelled to enter the low field of politics. There's also the first installment of the serialization of Peter B. Kyne's novel, Kindred of the Dust, which was made into a film in 1922 that Kynes himself produced, I think. And as well as a short story by Rupert Hughes titled The Split. And that's it, flubs and all. Hope you all have a good week, and I'll be yapping at you next time. Bye!